I asked you for your hottest medical takes on Twitter, on YouTube. Let's get started. Whoop. By default, everyone should be signed up to be an organ donor once they turn 18. If you truly don't want to be, you should have the option to opt out, but it should be the default. Oh man, that's such a societal thing. That's hard to say. I encourage people to be organ donors. I myself am an organ donor, but I don't think it should be the default. That's not something that vibes with my personal beliefs. Doctors should be required to keep up with current literature and take exams as their careers go on. There shouldn't be any doctors who operate 20 years in the past. We do that. It's called continuing medical education. We have to take courses, we have to take tests. This is something that regularly happens. I'm not sure why that's not more universally known. Someone shouldn't have to answer questions about pregnancy while trying to get a strep test. Well, they absolutely should, not because we're trying to invade your privacy, but because we're trying to figure out which antibiotic to give you. And if you're pregnant, maybe some antibiotics would be harmful to your baby. A lot of the time, the patient will be right about what's wrong with them. I will give you my version of this. A lot of the time, the patient will have very good insight into what's wrong with them. Whether or not they get the correct diagnosis isn't always the case. But that's why I make it a rule to ask every patient before I give my assessment and plan to them. I want to know what's in their mind. What are they thinking is going on, or what are they most worried about? Extreme hot take. Doctors actually aren't going to stay away if you eat an apple a day. Facts. Forcing everyone's circadian rhythms to match up for easy capitalism, even though the research suggests it's harmful, is the root cause of a ton of unexplained health problems in our society. I agree. It was brought up in my podcast interview with Matthew Walker, who's a sleep expert. What the evidence actually shows is that not everyone gets sleepy in the same period of a circadian rhythm. Now, we generally recommend everyone sleep in the approximate hours of, like, let's say 11 to 7. You get to 7 to 9 hours of sleep. But there are people who are night owls or morning larks, and there are differences in our bodies of when we are able to sleep comfortably. We need to understand that capitalism has forced us all to come in at the same time. School has forced us to come in at the same time, but that may not be ideal for all of our health. Hypnosis should be commonplace within the healthcare industry. There's overwhelming evidence to show hypnosis is extremely effective analgesic and can help with both pain and mental health. I like to see this research, can't agree or disagree, but I am skeptical, and not cynical, but skeptical. Hot take, doctors see an overweight person and automatically assume every complaint is because of their weight. We do have this weight bias. We absolutely do. And we need to understand that carrying an extreme amount of excess weight will cause medical conditions to get worse. Both things are true, and both things need to be addressed. Genetic testing should now be a routine part of healthcare. Completely disagree. In some instances, yes. Specific instances, yes. Routine, no. It's not come far enough where we know what to do with the results. As the prime example, when Chris Hemsworth goes to find out that he has a higher risk of developing Alzheimer's.
How much higher? Probably somewhere between 8 and 10 times higher.
But can't act on it, and now has tremendous health anxiety as a result. What was the use of doing the genetic test? That's why I don't order just lab work willy-nilly, because it needs to be done with a thought in mind. It's either diagnostic because I'm suspecting a problem, or it's screening because I know I can intervene, I know you want me to intervene, and there's benefit from intervening. Oh my God, this is the best one I've ever read. Mega dosing on vitamins is as useful as filling up your car with gas and then pouring extra gasoline in the back seat to help it run better. That's pretty good. I'm not a doctor or a nurse. I'm not even thinking about going to med school, but I feel like it should be free, or at least a portion of it. That literally doesn't exist. Face value, honest truth right now, doctor to person, doesn't exist. Even if you have universal health care, someone's paying for it, and that's taxpayers. What we see in the UK is they're having their own struggles finding funding to make sure that they have enough doctors, enough hospitals, deciding if we all collectively want to pay for it and collectively vote on how it gets distributed. That's one thing, but making it free, doesn't really exist as an option. Thomas Frank, in my experience, the recommendation for immobilization time after a sprain is way too long. When I badly sprained my shoulder in a snowboarding accident, ER doc said to immobilize in a sling for 2 weeks. Lifting coach immediately disagreed, said immobilization for that long would result in scar tissue formation, loss of mobility, and had me raising a 2.5 pound plate the very next day. I ended up recovering with full strength and range of motion. I think we overuse the word rest. And when we say rest as doctors, we need to be clear what we mean. What we mean is not bed rest, because bed rest and actually laying in bed and laying immobilized can actually cause harm when it comes to so many musculoskeletal conditions for the reasons that Thomas Frank pointed out here. Long-term immobilization of a shoulder can lead to frozen shoulder, adhesive capsulitis. This is a legitimate medical condition. Decreased mobility from a low back after a low back strain and having too much bed rest can actually prolong symptoms, make it more likely that you're to re-injure your back. So when we say rest, what we instead should say, avoid offending activities. The reason why we want you to activate your muscles without harming them, meaning don't feel pain, that's the guide for how you know if you're harming them or not, is because by activating them, you continue that neuroactivation pathway that allows you to keep good control of that muscle. And secondarily, you increase circulation the most when you use these muscles. As a direct support professional who has cared for adults with disabilities, I will never put anyone I care about in a group home or a nursing home. Seen too many awful things and seen too much mistreatment. I don't doubt that this happens, and I don't doubt that you've seen this happen. But to say that no one should ever do this would be a hot take, because you have to think about what happens on the other side of things. If someone has to go to work and is unable to give enough attention to their loved ones who may be having cognitive issues where they're not taking their medications regularly, or maybe taking their medications incorrectly and then overdosing on them, that puts them at a way higher risk than for the potential risk of mistreatment. And remember, every decision when it comes to your health is a balance of the benefits and risks. As an ICU nurse, people who treat their health poorly, i.e. smoking, drinking alcohol, abusing drugs, should have to pay a larger percentage of their treatment / higher insurance fees than people who live a healthy lifestyle and get the same disease. This would not only be a more fair system, but also motivate people to get and stay healthy. I don't think this works out. You will ultimately create a system that will target and really hurt those who are already hurting. Many of the people who are abusing drugs or not taking care of their bodies are likely going through something that led them down to this path. Obviously, some people make poor decisions, but to know the difference between which ones were hurt by societal issues versus the ones who solely made this decision on their own would be near impossible. And then as a result, you have all these people who have unfortunately been harmed by society and just general life unfairness, where you're gonna beat them down even further with higher costs. That's not gonna give you better outcomes. My hottest take is that doctors with talent agencies are dangerous because it can be a conflict of interest between patient care and entertainment. I mean, I'm very biased here because I have an agency, a talent agency behind me, but the reason I have a talent agency is not because I'm more interested in entertainment than I am being a doctor. My responsibility is always first and foremost to being a doctor, but it helps me to have an agency behind me so that I don't focus on the business work of doing media, but instead focus on the medical work. There are obviously plenty of examples of doctors in media that have talent agencies that do a really bad job and actually spread misinformation. But to make that generalization would leave a lot of inaccuracies in it. As an oncology nurse, I truly believe cancer will never be cured, even though it could be because of how much money big pharma, insurance companies, hospitals make of it. I even think billionaires or other VIPs may have access to cancer curing technology the rest of us will never see. This is certainly a hot take. I would even say maybe a little conspiracy toned take. This isn't the case. The people that are working in big pharma are people still. Now, their bosses and CEOs are definitely thinking in terms of financial budgets and boosting their stock price and all. But believe me, they want to find the cure for cancer. And the people working on it behind the scenes are heartbroken when they read things like this. So we just need to be really careful and remember there are humans behind the scenes advocating for this. In fact, I was lucky enough to award Time Magazine's Hero of the Year award last year or 2 years ago for the inventors of the mRNA vaccines. And those people are people. They work hard to create those vaccines. So when they see misinformation or conspiracy theories about their own work that they spent their whole lives working on, it's painful for them to see. And I think just to debunk that last statement with a really thorough example, Steve Jobs didn't want to go through typical pharmacology for pancreatic cancer. Not that we have great pharmacology for pancreatic cancer. It's one of the worst cancer survival rates, 5-year survival rates. But he chose not to do it, tried to go the natural way, and unfortunately succumbed to the illness. The difference in patient satisfaction between a doctor in the 5th versus 95th percentile within their specialty is huge. The difference in objective patient-centered outcomes, death, heart attack, strokes, hospital length of stay, between a doctor in the 5th and 95th in their specialty is tiny. What Dr. Eric Strong is pointing out here is that whether or not a doctor is likable or is favored by their patients has a huge variance. But whether or not they help their patients is a smaller variance, a much smaller variance. And all that goes to show and highlight very, very clearly that it's not us who do the healing, but it's your bodies that do the healing. Hot take, too many doctors miss Lyme disease as a potential diagnosis. So true. First of all, not every patient will have an erythema migrans or bullseye rash. Also, not everyone will even see the rash on their body. And then people think that they need to be outdoors to get a tick bite that can lead to Lyme disease. No, people have dogs that run outside that bring ticks home. I actually have a whole story about a patient of mine who was misdiagnosed with Lyme disease. Click here to hear that story, and as always, stay happy and healthy.